A Nigerian Air Force C-130 made an emergency landing in Burkina Faso on Monday. 11 soldiers on board. Technical fault, Nigeria said. Just a routine safety procedure. By evening, the plane was detained. The soldiers arrested. 3 countries, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, issued a joint statement threatening to shoot down any aircraft that enters their airspace without permission. Within 48 hours, a single aircraft turned West Africa into a power cake. But here is the thing. The more you look into the story, the less official versions make sense. Nigeria says technical emergency, international aviation law. They followed all the rules. The Alliance of Sahel States says airspace violation, no authorization, sovereignty breach. They can't both be right, and the details that don't add up, they tell us everything about what's really happening in West Africa right now. So stick with me, because we are going to investigate this like a detective story. Follow the evidence, question both sides, and figure out what really happened when that C-130 landed in Bobo-Dioulasso, and why it matters so much than just one plane. On Monday, December 8th, a Nigerian Air Force C-130 Hercules departed Lagos. Official mission? Ferry flight to Portugal for scheduled maintenance. Now, according to the Nigerian Air Force, shortly after takeoff, the crew noticed a technical concern. Now, following international safety protocols, they requested permission for a precautionary landing at the nearest suitable airfield. Bobo-Dioulasso, Burkina Faso. Permission granted. They landed safely. Burkinabe officials were welcoming. Engineers worked overnight. Problem solved. Ready to take off by Tuesday morning. Then everything changed. A sudden counter order came from Burkina Faso's military command. Halt that aircraft. All 11 personnel were detained. The plane was grounded. Now, that's Nigeria's version. But let's look at the evidence that make people question the story. First, the plane itself. The C-130 Hercules isn't some delicate aircraft. It's the workhorse of military aviation, the 4x4 of planes. This aircraft was designed to land on difficult terrain, on paved runways, semi-prepared strips. It's literally built to handle emergencies in difficult conditions. Second, the route. If you are flying from Lagos to Portugal, the logical path is west over the Atlantic Ocean, not north over landlocked Burkina Faso. More importantly, if the technical problem started shortly after takeoff from Lagos, why fly hundreds of kilometers to Burkina Faso? Third, the airports that were passed. Between Lagos and Bobo-Dioulasso, there are multiple closer options. Airports in Nigeria itself, Ibadan, Benin City, airports in Benin Republic, airports in Togo, airports in Ghana. For a plane that can land almost anywhere, why keep flying to a country that far? One Nigerian on social media asked, C-130H is one of our largest aircraft cargo planes. What was it doing flying over Benin, Ghana and Burkina Faso? What was it carrying? Another user responded, an aircraft making an emergency landing doesn't violate airspace, but use signal maybe you go to the nearest safe airport. So maybe there is an explanation. Maybe Bobo-Dioulasso was the best option. For some technical reasons we don't know. But then we get the other side of the story and it's completely different. Now, according to the Alliance of Sahel States, that is Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, this wasn't an innocent emergency landing. The aircraft entered Burkinabe airspace without authorization. An investigation was immediately opened. It confirmed the plane had no clearance to fly over Burkina Faso. They call it sovereignty violation, an unfriendly act, and they announced their air defense systems were now on maximum alert, with orders to neutralize any aircraft that violates their airspace. Burkina Faso's Territorial Administration Minister, Emile Zebo, was direct. The aircraft violated national procedures by flying into the country without authorization. So we have two completely contradictory versions. Nigeria says clearance was granted. The AES says there was no clearance. One of them is lying, or both of them are telling partial truths that serve their interests. But here is what makes this more than just a diplomatic dispute. The timing. Less than 24 hours before this plane landed in Burkina Faso, Nigeria conducted military operations in Benin Republic. On Sunday, December 7th, the day before the plane incident, soldiers in Benin Republic attempted a coup. They seized the state television, announced they had overthrown President Patrice Talon. Within hours, Nigerian fighter jets were in Beninese airspace. Nigerian ground troops crossed the border, and by evening, the coup was crushed. The speed was impressive, the coordination was decisive, and it sent a message across West Africa. But not everyone liked the message. Security analyst Zagazola Makama said it plainly: detaining an emergency crew is not an accident. It's an act of vengeance. Burkina Faso is sending a message to Nigeria after the failed coup in Benin. Now, think about this from the AES perspective. A coup happens in Benin, their neighbor. If it had succeeded, Benin might have joined the alliance. 4 countries instead of 3, and more weight behind the sovereignty movement. But Nigeria intervened, crushed it, kept Benin in ECOWAS. Then, in less than 24 hours later, a Nigerian military cargo plane shows up in Burkina Faso's military airspace. From the AES point of view, that doesn't look like a coincidence. That looks like surveillance, or was preparation for intervention. They had just watched Nigeria deploy jets across borders within hours. Now, a Nigerian military aircraft is in their territory. See, whether that's true or not doesn't matter. Perception drives decisions. And the perception, this was a threat. And that brings us to the contradictions both sides don't want to talk about. While Burkina Faso was condemning Nigeria for violating sovereignty, Nigerians started asking some uncomfortable questions. Question 1. If Burkina Faso thinks Nigeria violated their airspace, why is Burkina Faso's embassy still open in Abuja? Well, think about that. Burkina Faso withdrew from ECOWAS. They have aligned with Russia. They have placed air defenses on alert against Nigeria. They are threatening to shoot down Nigerian aircraft, but their embassy still open, still protected by Nigerian security, still enjoying diplomatic immunity on Nigerian soil. Makama puts it directly: if they expect safe operations for their mission on Nigerian soil, they must uphold reciprocal commitments under international law. Question 2. What about international aviation law? Under ICAO Annex 2, that's the International Civil Aviation Organization rules of air, any aircraft facing technical distress has the unrestricted right to land anywhere, including hostile territory. The crew must be protected. Burkina Faso detained the crew anyway. They call it sovereignty issue. But as Makama noted, if every country behaved as Burkina Faso did, global aviation will collapse in chaos. What happens when a Burkinabe aircraft faces an emergency over Nigeria? Will they want Nigeria to apply the same logic? But there is a double standard on Nigeria's side too, and this is the one that hurts most. Because while this diplomatic drama played out, Nigerians at home started asking a brutal question. If the Nigerian military can mobilize troops and jets to Benin within hours to stop a coup, why can't they respond the same way to terrorists and kidnappers tearing Nigeria apart? The Benin operation proved capability, mobilization, execution, decision-making, all within 12 hours. That's impressive military coordination. But in Nigeria's northeast, bandits have terrorized communities for years. In the northeast, insurgents control territories. In the Abuja-Kaduna highway, kidnappings are so routine they barely make headlines. One Nigerian wrote on social media, "We can mobilize jets for Benin in hours, but when terrorists attack Zamfara, it takes days to respond." Another said, "Our soldiers are fast when defending other countries, but when defending Nigerian lives, suddenly there is no fuel, no coordination, no political will." Now, this is the uncomfortable truth beneath the geopolitics. While Nigeria projects power across borders, its own citizens are asking, why does Benin democracy get faster protection than Nigerian lives? Now, that question, that's the one that gets deepest because it's about priorities. The Benin operation proved Nigeria has capability. So what's missing isn't capability, it's choice. And the AES, their perspective deserves consideration too. Many Pan-Africans across the continent support what they are doing. They see it as reclaiming sovereignty from decades of foreign interference. AES supporters argue that since taking control, these governments have made real progress, terminating exploitative mining contracts, investing in local infrastructure, asserting control over their own resources. They point to new regional cooperation, the launch of their own passport system, plans for their own currency, and the debate over security is more complex too. Yes, terrorism remains a challenge, but AES supporters ask, why should we measure success by Western metrics when the previous democratic governments, backed by France and ECOWAS, failed to provide security for decades? So this isn't a story about heroes and villains. This is about two fundamentally different visions of what African sovereignty should look like, colliding in real time. So what really happened when that C-130 landed in Bobo Dioulasso? Was it a technical fault? Maybe. The evidence is contradictory. Was it something more? Possibly. The timing and route raised legitimate questions. But here is what we know for certain. One plane exposed how fractured West Africa has become. Nigeria is trying to reclaim regional leadership it abandoned for 2 decades. But it's doing this when part of the region is saying, we don't want that leadership, we want sovereignty. And it's doing this while its own citizens ask why external operations get resources that internal security doesn't. The AES is asserting independence from what they see as neo-colonial structures, but they are doing it while maintaining embassies in countries they view as threats, while navigating the same international systems they criticize. You see, both sides have legitimate grievances, both sides have contradictions, and the power cake is getting more volatile because there is no longer a shared framework for resolving these tensions. There is a Yoruba saying, the lizard that jumped from the high Iroko tree said he would praise himself if no one else did. Nigeria is praising itself for defending democracy abroad. The AES is praising itself for defending sovereignty and self-determination. And millions of Pan-Africans across the continent are praising them too. seeing them as finally breaking free from neo-colonial structures. But the real question isn't who is right in their narrative. It's whether West Africa can find the path forward when these two visions integrate versus sovereignty, collective security versus self-reliance, are pulling in opposite directions. What do you think really happened? Technical fault or something more? Drop your analysis below. Now, if you're watching from Nigeria, are you frustrated seeing military capability used abroad while security challenges persist at home? If you are watching from AES countries or support their sovereignty movements, do you see this detention as legitimate protection or dangerous escalation? And for everyone, can these two visions of Africa coexist? Or are we watching a permanent fracture? Now, this is what we do here. African geopolitics, hard questions, investigations that matter, that go deeper. If you are interested in this, subscribe. My name is Afterward Luis. You're watching Africa Today, and this is the Strategic Lens. I want to say thank you to all those that are members to this channel. Your contribution, your support helps us produce more and reach more people every day. Bye.